Good evening and welcome to Kolkata Centre for Creativity. Before beginning today's session, I would like to introduce Kolkata Centre for Creativity for the benefit of those who might not be aware of us or our works. Kolkata Centre for Creativity, or KCC, is a multidisciplinary interactive arts centre based in Kolkata. It is a unit of Anamika Kala Sangam Trust, a not-for-profit public trust that promotes research and experimentation and champions inclusivity and accessibility in the interface between the arts and society. We encourage a multidisciplinary approach in the pursuit of creative and cultural practices, and through well-curated programs, aim to build an empathetic, optimistic, and informed community. We are translocal in spirit and encourage the cross-pollination of ideas and creativity across borders. Revisiting the Legacy of Loss, Session 2, today's session, is one of the initiatives to express the narratives related to partition, often the ones heard from parents and grandparents, and to transcend them through creative pursuits. We have with us this evening some distinguished speakers who would enrich us with their knowledge and experience in this field. I would now like to introduce the speakers of today's program. First of all, we have Dr. Paula Sengupta, Professor, Faculty of Printmaking, Rabindra Bharati University. She is an artist, academician, curator, and researcher who works using diverse mediums and techniques. Her 2010 project titled Rivers of Blood has received critical acclaim. It was inspired by partition and displacement that her family faced in 1947. A workshop and a journey through Bangladesh in 2008 led her to make some fascinating creations. Next, we have Devashed Mukherjee, an artist, a published poet, and an avid photographer. His work tends to interrogate the way an object or memory is preserved, celebrated, or neglected. He has done extensive research with weavers and artisans across India, while working with a prestigious fashion house. He has several important solo shows and group shows in his journey. We are expected to have another speaker this evening, who is a film director, actor, music director, and cinematographer, Goutam Ghosh. He is primarily associated with Bengali cinema. Goutam Ghosh is popular for his directorial ventures such as Par, Dokhol, and Moner Manush, among others. He has also made a number of prominent documentaries, including New Earth and Meeting a Milestone. He unfortunately is traveling and has certain commitments and is in an area where the internet connection isn't strong enough. So whether he will be able to join is uncertain. We are certainly expecting him to join though and enrich the session. Let me now introduce the moderator of this session, Dr. Anandita Ghoshal, who had moderated the previous talk session as well. Dr. Anandita Ghoshal is a partition historian. She teaches history at Diamond Harbour Women's University, Kolkata, West Bengal. Her area of research includes partition and refugee studies with special emphasis on Eastern and Northeastern India and Bangladesh. We will begin by showcasing the installation views of the exhibition, The Legacy of Loss, Perspectives on the Partition of Bengal. We will be showcasing the works of the two artists who are here, Dr. Paula Sengupta and Devashed Mukherjee. Over to you, Dr. Anandita Ghoshal now. Please take this ahead. Ma'am, you're on mute.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for this very generous introduction. Can you please start the PowerPoint presentation first? And then I'll go to the artist and we'll talk to them, interact with them, and we'll hear from them. And we all are so eager to hear from them. So can you please start the PowerPoint presentation first? We'll begin with the works of Professor Paula Banerjee, and then we'll actually see the works of Devashish Mukherjee.
Paula Sengupta.
Paula Sengupta, sorry, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. This is the view of her very like famous creation of these two almiras, and where she tried to actually blend her parents' origin, I believe. So can you please change it? It's beautiful. It's actually a wonderful uh, artwork with blocks. Yeah, and this is also my favorite. Yeah, and the name of this work is my cabinet of recipes, where she tried to showcase the recipes of three generations and how she tried to amalgamate these three generations. Yeah, can you please change? And the name of this work is Bangla Khat, and here this work is very special as Professor Sengupta right now she's working on flora and fauna of Bengal, and she tried to show a little bit of her work, and this work is actually very new, what she was telling me on that day of your inauguration. Can you please, yeah. And like these are recipes. These four actually recipe books are very interesting, and she tried to like showcase the fish recipes, the names of the fish, rivers, and other things. And I'll ask actually her questions about this piece. The name of this piece is Cox's Bazar, the English East West Fish Bar, Kolkata, Dhaka. Very interesting work. Can you please change? Here we can see the work of Devashish Mukherjee in the background. Here he actually tried to like experience with his photos from his archives, own archives, and I think it deals with nostalgia. And this piece actually, it's a huge wall, and KCC installed this work beautifully. So the view of this wall is actually very interesting, and for this PowerPoint presentation, actually they separated all these views. But as a whole, for me at least, this wall is beautiful with his works, and he actually tried to do it with minute details. Thank you so much. So let me start with Paula Di, Professor Paula Sengupta. So Paula Di, as we know that East Bengal, right now we call it Bangladesh, is actually prevalent in your artworks, and it's beautiful. So it feels like the Desh, the idea of Desh and Deshbhag is an essential part of your being. So can you please tell us about your personal connection with partition?
Thank you, Anindita, and good evening to everybody attending this session. And thank you to KCC for hosting this very important exhibition and this two-part talk series. To answer your question, Anindita, so yes, it's true that Desh and Deshbhag are are notions that I grew up with. So from the time I was very young, on both sides of my family, I grew up listening to these stories, and I think it was particularly an essential part of our existence because my both sides of the family actually came across in 1947 itself. And so my father's family, which was based in Kumilla, very close actually to the border with Tripura, from my father's village, which is called Batisha Gram in Kumilla. You can actually see the barbed wire that separates India and Bangladesh on the Tripura side. And so the two adjacent districts of Kumilla and Noakhali witnessed some of the worst rioting during partition, as we all know. And so it was in, and Batisha Gram, which my father came from, was a, what they call a Hindu Pradhan Gram, so it was predominantly Hindus, and especially Hindus belonging to the Boito community.
Okay.
So and the main market there is still called Batisha Boito Bajar.
Okay.
And so it was in 1947 that they actually, because of this rioting, they came across. So partition was very much a reality to them. My mother's family was right at the other end, based out of what was then. Uh, uh, I mean, they were from the village of Borokalia, and Borokalia was in the district of Joshore then, and is now in Norail. And that is very close to the Benapole border, very close to Kolkata. So actually, my mother's family for a long time had more comings and goings with Kolkata as opposed to Dhaka, because they were always closer to Kolkata. And one branch of the family lived here. But nevertheless, it was in 1947 that, even though they did not completely have to abandon their home, but they still, the better part of the family came across during the riots. And so I grew up with these stories, and my grandfather, on my father's side, was a great storyteller. So we sort of grew up with stories that were very, I mean, he told us very idyllic stories of the village, the home, the pond, the trees, and all the activities. But afterwards, as I grew up and I kept wanting to go to Bangladesh and visit, and I kept trying to persuade members of my family to take me, but nobody was ready to go, because the memories were actually so bitter. That bitterness had never been passed on to us. We realized that when we were much older. So, but yes, it's very much a part of my upbringing. Our beginnings were in Viveknagar and Jadavpur. I mean, I never lived there, but that's where my father grew up, in a refugee colony in Viveknagar, and the family suffered a lot of hardship in trying to resettle. So these were essentially stories that we grew up with, So they remained ingrained in my system, and I think they found some kind of expression much later.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your connection with the partition. It's fascinating. So let me come to Debashista. Debashista, as we know that you grew up in Chopra, a railway town in Bihar. So you do not have a direct connection with the partition of Bengal, which is very interesting, like between our two artists. So you have said that in your art, you look at displacement in a larger context, about how we are always displaced from our past, with return never being a possibility. So there is also an element of spatial displacement in your life, with you moving across the country. So how do you negotiate the spatial and temporal level of displacement in your artworks? So
thank you, Anindita. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
And good evening, everybody, for being here for the session. It's certainly very difficult to be at home on a Sunday evening. Trust me, I know this very well. So thank you once again for that. Thank you, Rajashri, for connecting all of us. And thank you, Rituparna, for walking that extra mile in Rajashri's absence. KCC for putting up this amazing show. Really, I missed all the action. I regret not being there for the opening. Now let me come to the first part of the question. Well, being the second generation, since we believe the partition is an ongoing process, in any case, it is more like a ripple effect on us, on me at least. So I grew up listening to the stories of Opar Bangla from my Dida, my grandmother, and a friend of my father's, who lovely orator, and his narratives skills were amazing and fascinating and captivating. I remember when he used to tell us stories, we would all sit and listen to him. And we called him Dr. Kaku, I still remember. Now, while he would talk about his stories, we would ask him, "Kichu golpa bolo," just tell us some story. And he would talk about, he was a school teacher at the time of partition, and what all he went through, and a very, very tough and difficult time he had faced. And then from Bodishal, he moved to Chopra. Now, Chopra, give you a little bit of background of Chopra. Chopra was extremely, rich in terms of heritage. And while I lived in Chopra, I didn't even know, because very strangely, because I remember when I was working for one of my solos called Museum Within, and that time, I was doing a lot of research, and I came to know about, there was one site very close to Delhi, and that was being excavated that time. And that time I came to know that Chopra was basically 10 kilometers away from Chopra, where I lived. A place called Chiran was a Neolithic site in this period. Now, can you imagine how ignorant we all were? I was, at least. So when I was growing up, so a lot of people who moved from Bangladesh to that far a place, and certainly there was no refugee colony or no settlement. They just moved on to that place. So I grew up listening to a lot of stories, but believe me, I did not. It was just to me another story. It was not. I was not thinking about partition. I didn't know I was going to be an artist. And I lived in Chopra till about 17, when I was 17, and then I moved on to Benares, and then I moved to Delhi. So several. Now, if I, answer the second question, second part of your question, that how I deal with displacement. Now, displacement, when I say, to me, if I talk about partition, now partition displacement has a bigger, large role to play in partition.
Mm.
Now, if I look at the connotation of displacement, if I talk about the emotion attached to it, or the elements attached to, I felt it deeply when I moved away from Chopra, because a place where I was born, a place where I studied, I grew up, and I had my whole family. I never thought I would move out of Chopra. Believe me, my life was very simple. I was very happy. Like all of you, I have many memories of that place. So then I went to BHU, when I was in university, to my fine arts. I still would go back to Chopra just because, it was my home. Now, my father retired the same year I completed my BFA, and we moved to Delhi. So when I moved to Delhi, that time displacement hit me really hard, because the Delhi was a very, very different city. And if I talk about Chopra, and then Banaras would be one notch above, but Delhi was a very, very different kind of city.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And even after spending about 26, 27 years in Delhi, if I look back, if I think about my memories, I completely rely upon Chopra. I don't know, for some reason, this last 26 years, I have many good memories, my achievements, this and that, my work, friends. But if I talk about really, really a place where I miss, and that is always Chopra. So Chopra has come back to, my work, my memories, and memories plays a very, very important role in my work. So when I was working with the show called River Song, I went through our personal albums, and that's where it all began, actually, because River Song was primarily an exhibition where I dealt with personal memories. And after seeing that, only when Rajeshri told me about this particular exhibition, and I was the last one to be added to this panel of, there were already 4 artists, and she saw one of my work, which when Zarina passed away, I had, created and then posted on social media, and she has seen that. So that's where she connected with me. She said, I love this work. Would you be part of this? Because I'm I'm planning a show of, on this subject. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but this is what I have to say about this.
No, it's a beautiful answer. Thank you so much for sharing your childhood days and your idea of displacement with us. Paula, let me ask you about your artwork right now, as I found it fascinating on that day of inauguration. So there is an artwork of yours centered around the authentic cuisine of Bangladesh. We actually saw the image of that artwork in that PPT. The recipes of your mother-in-law who cannot cook have been highlighted in your artwork. You have mentioned there that your mother can cook a number of recipes but does not have recipes for them. You, on the other hand, can cook a number of dishes and have several recipes too. So what does this amalgamation actually symbolize? Why did you feel like trying to create something with this particular idea? And what was the inspiration behind it? So for me, the last question is the most interesting question. Please share.
So I'll start with your last question.
Yeah.
So, so the inspiration behind this is actually after I got married, I came into a very different family because, as I mentioned in the beginning, that I come from on both sides, both my parents, I come from a displaced refugee family that resettled in Kolkata, and whereas my in-laws are, uh, originally from the other side, from Opar Bangla, but they've been settled in Kolkata for uh, 4 generations now. So so not much of their roots in Bangladesh remain. They're also a very anglicized Brahmo family. So it was sort of very different for me culturally and all of that when I came into this family, this household. And what I found very interesting is that, and I'm sure many of us have this in our homes, but my mother-in-law has a host of recipe books, and all handwritten recipe books in our school exercise books and diaries and things, which are very old, dog-eared and all that. And these belong to her mother, her mother-in-law, and and one or two which are hers.
And she kept all of them.
They're all there, and they're still brought out, at least once or twice a week, and referred to and read out to the cook, and things are cooked from them and all that. So they're very much like a living object in our household. And so, I was just really taken by these recipe books because I'd never seen them in my own house, because my mother was a very good cook, but she never referred to a single recipe in her life. She cooked by instinct. And if you asked my mother, if you ate something and then, like 1 month later, you told her that, you made this, will you make it again? She was like, she could never, completely recreate it. She would create something else, because she never actually worked from a recipe. So that was my mother on the one hand. And then there was my mother-in-law, who actually does not cook herself, but she has all these recipe books. So it was like two ends of the spectrum. And the thing is that, on a more serious note, I'm personally very interested in cooking. I cook, I love to cook. I'm interested in different kinds of cuisine. And for me, cooking is very much a creative exercise. For 7 months in the pandemic, there was no cook and I was cooking. But, for me, because there was no time to get into the studio. So I think I kind of recreated that experience in the kitchen. And so I was whipping up all kinds of things through this pandemic. And so anyway, but having said that, I feel that cuisine is a great signifier of the layering of cultures. And when I actually leaf through these recipe books of my mother-in-law, there are recipes from all over the world, not just recipes from East Bengal and West Bengal, but there are recipes from everywhere, all parts of India, different parts of the world. And you know, I mean, my in-laws are a family that eat Bangla ranna or Bengali cooking for lunch and English for dinner. Okay, that still happens even now. So you know, so the recipe books actually reflect all of this. It reflects our you know, our the fact our Bengali cultural identity on the one hand, but also the fact that we have years of colonial history, you know, layered within that, and we are all products of this layering, this very hybrid evolution of cultures. And you know that Kolkata is a melting pot for you know, decades, centuries now. And so all of this is I felt that, you know, it's those recipe books are like a little microcosm of what our cultural existence actually is, our social and cultural identity. And that's why you know, I think that was actually more the reason why I gravitated towards that work. So you know, so there's my mother-in-law's recipes, there's my mother's recipes, and then there's me in that work. It's a three-sided almirah. And what I can cook is basically an amalgamation of both my mother and my mother-in-law's you know, recipes. And of course, the other thing is the you know, I have 3 mannequins inside that denote 3 generations of women who are kind of in costume. And of course, they're all fish recipes. So so on the one hand, you know, there is sort of Western costume that young girls or little girls wore, and on the other hand, there's the very you know, Brahmo way of wearing the sari that was discovered by Ganodanandini Devi, you know, later into the century, and sort of first adopted by the Brahmos and all of that. So there's that on one side, but on the inner side of the mannequin, you know, it is lined with fish and corsets and fish. So it's like fish in the belly, and you know, with the exterior being very anglicized. So that's what the work is about.
Thank you so much for this very interesting answer.
Oh, wow. I miss seeing, really, I would love to see this work, especially the details.
It's a fun work.
It's wonderful, actually.
No, I'm sure KCC has done enough, you know, photographs.
They have done wonderful job, like in showcasing.
Yeah, it's a very well installed exhibition.
Yeah, exactly. Debashish, now I'm going to ask you another very interesting question that you have been associated with the fashion industry. So as an artist, how has it like informed your art? As it's not very usual kind of thing that you have first worked in that industry and now you are like a celebrated artist. So can you please share that?
Well, no, when I came here in Delhi in 1994, and initially few days, I just didn't know what to do. And I had responsibility of my family. Me and my brother both were there. My father was retired. And so I had to do something initially to, you know, support my family. So that is where I started. So initially, a few days, I went to an ad agency. I hated the work. And then I was, you know, then I just so happened that I met Payal Jain, the designer. And she was absolutely, you know, that was the year 1994, and 93 end, she had finished her, you know, her degree from FIDM San Francisco. And here I come next year, January, I met her, you know, fresh graduate from fine arts. So it was very interesting combination because she was, you know, completely skilled with her technical knowledge of fashion, and I had a visual sensibility. So when I talk about fashion, fashion has 2 very, very important sides. One is the garment making, one is the material for the garment. So I always enjoyed the process of creating the textiles and say it, weaving, printing. So and we were pre-Google people we are.
Yeah.
So there was no Google that time. So for everything, we actually went to the remote villages and worked with the master craftspeople and understood the processes, did a lot of research. I still remember going to a place called Bagru in Rajasthan, not too far from Delhi. And they that time they were doing 3 shades of indigo.
Okay.
And I was trying to tell them we can do 4 shades of indigo. So he would say, though he was national body, but he would say, nahi sir, ho nahi sakta. And I'm, let's try. And I sat there, designed the blocks. First we did the design because we knew that was in our head, because me and Payal, we had done it in Delhi. So I go there. So what happens, it's a process we learn. And same when we talk about going to Banaras, going to Swarnapur in Odisha, working with the Ikat people, going to Gujarat, and many people, this very intricate embroideries, weaving. They all teach few things. One is how rich we are in terms of tradition, and we must try and kind of protect them and use them in day-to-day life, so they also get some livelihood. And so sustainability is very important part in that. Second thing, all those people are very humble people. Really, you won't know how humble they are, how down to earth they are. So, and all of these. So I think what taught me in these many years, it's been 26 long years that I've been working in the fashion industry, is number one, dealing with textiles. And my memory of textile goes with me. I still remember when with my mother. My memory of textile is all about my mother, because I still remember, even haath dhuye, I mean, my aanchulei puchtam. I don't remember ever using a hand towel or a
Towel,
even till, and I was the youngest, extremely pampered. So I remember how sometimes during rainy days, Ma would tie a sari inside the house to dry. And it's with huge prints. I remember there was a jungle print, and basically there were floral motifs. And I can get lost under those those textile layers. So I have those memories. And then when after many years, when I thought textile as my medium, I chose textile as my medium since I had done enough research about it. I had a very in-depth knowledge of it. It really gave me a very different dimension in terms of perspective. Because when I talk about layered memories, when I talk about how to put them in perspective, textile gives me that base naturally, because the weft and woof, anyway, it creates a story on its own. It's very, very interesting. So I think fashion has helped me. Being in industry, I won't say fashion, because I am still saying I'm not a very fashionable person. I believe me, I don't really get into the glamorous side of it. I like the way seriously, I really like the way, I tell you, Paula, we work very closely with chicken curries of chicken car peoples of Lucknow. These garments are, we mark them embroidered and we tell them what to do. And even one single drop of blood and it's wasted. So can you imagine how much pain? And it's unfortunate. Now what we have done, we have adopted a village, and so the money goes directly to them. Otherwise they get hardly any money for their work, the kind of work we do. So anyway, I think we are deviating from the subject. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for this answer. We actually get to learn so many things from you. Paula, let me come to you again. And it's a very similar kind of question. So to you, what is the definition of hybridity? Please share your stories of growing up with the images and stories of the 2 villages of your parents. And how did you get the idea of using those 2 old almiras? For me, that is my personal favorite, to showcase a particular art form in block prints and textiles. So it is very much related with textiles. like the earlier passages. So can you please tell us?
So I think, carry on from what Debashish was
Yeah.
saying. And, in certain senses, I think maybe we are kindred spirits. So, um, so I trained as a printmaker, and that's my specialization, and it's what I teach. And undoubtedly, I've done a lot of research in printmaking, and and undoubtedly it is my first love. And um, but and I mean, it's absolutely true that once a printmaker, always a printmaker. You can take an artist out of a printmaker, but you can't take a printmaker out of an artist. So that is there. So that is one part of me. But also, I have a great love for textiles. And sometimes I do feel like I wish I had actually studied textiles, but I feel like I need another life for that, because it's just so vast, so rich. um, and but that is there with me, because once again, it's associated with my childhood memories. My maternal grandmother and my mother were very, very good seamstresses. I learned to embroider from them. And the sound of the sewing machine, um, these are all very familiar things from my childhood. My mother used to make beautiful clothes, and till the time I was well into my teens, I always wore clothes that were made by her. And from my childhood, she always kept the scraps, the pieces of the little scraps of cloth for me. And I used to make things out of them. I used to make clothes for my dolls. I used to make like stuffed toys. I used to do appliques. So all of this came very naturally to me. And after that, I went to Kola Bhavan. Now, Kola Bhavan, has a very holistic approach to art education. And this kind of hierarchical division of high art and low art and so on does not actually exist in Kola Bhavan. And it was sort of Nandalal Bose's philosophy that all of these are valid art making practices. And so that's the environment in which I did my postgraduate studies. And especially during the Obon Mala, which was the art fair there, we used to move freely between departments and make all sorts of work for the art fair. And I would spend a lot of time in the textile design department and do things. It was in Kola Bhavan that I kind of went back to a lot of just embroidering for myself and all that. My approach to embroidery, applique, etc., whatever work I used to do in textiles was very, I've never had a habit of drawing on of embroidering on a premeditated pattern.
Okay.
So I just have a habit of picking up the needle and thread and just working impromptu on the fabric.
Oh.
So I actually use my needle like a drawing tool.
Okay.
So for me, it's a practice akin to drawing. And over time, it's become, I think, so textiles were something that were very close to my heart. My mother, from the time I was born, she was actually collecting saris from every state of India for my trousseau. And I have all of them. They are like, very, very treasured. My textile collection is very treasured. And so all of this comes very naturally, very organically to me. And the other thing is that, of course, textiles, just, by the sheer sort of tactile quality that they have a great affinity to printmaking, because printmaking is a very tactile medium. And so there is that affinity. I often feel like they're like, sister mediums or practices or materials, and that's what also draws me to them. And very often, I work sort of between the print and textile. And my work kind of occupies that in between space. And as you saw that, I've created in those almirahs, which you like so much.
And I love the way you said that, those blocks are very, very precious to me.
Oh yes, they are.
And I saw your face, nah?
Yeah, they are. Like what shall I say? Those blocks are like, I keep them in my Godrej if I can. They're so precious to me. So, so what I've done there is I've created, I've been trying to, so for a long time, and that is my current preoccupation. So for a long time, the fabric chintz is something that I've been hugely fascinated with. Its history, its politics, its appearance, of course, which is just like so widely attractive. And so, that was one of the first occasions on which I made chintz. And as you can see, I've printed on a wallpaper. I printed the blocks, and so so I'm always kind of operating between this middle area between printmaking and textile. The almirahs themselves are they're not actually old; they are new. They were made for this work, and they just look antique. And
what about those pillows?
Yeah, so so the almirahs I made to kind of simulate diorama displays in colonial museums, and because I wanted these works to sort of have the impression of being encapsulated in time. I wanted to kind of make the whole exhibition or the whole body of work look like a museum of ethnography. And I'm very interested in ethnographic museums, so so that's what I wanted to make it look like, because I wanted to freeze a particular moment in history which I felt was very important for us to remember, for us to not, more than remember, I should say, for us to not forget, so that's what that's the reason that I did this. And the pillows are so this pair of almirahs actually concerns the nuptials, and how even though the old in the process of partition, the homestead had been left behind, but you still carried that baggage, and how even in your new life you continued to form liaisons based on what you had left behind. So things like which village you come from, which caste you belong to, etc., became very important when you formed liaisons, when you made marriages. And so, so this is basically the union between my parents. The pillows are the two nuptial pillows, a male pillow and a female pillow with the male and female genitalia, and, little pots, nuptial, little pots which carry their village name and so on. So that's what the work is about.
Beautiful, Paula. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing this. Debashish, in your work, Landscape of Memories, a faint hint of mesh actually visible on the top of the picture. So what is it exactly? So what was the thought behind using that?
Okay, see, if you, how it all happened actually, if I must tell you the story behind it. While doing the river song, I stepped in deeper to explore my context, and my personal family archive became primary source of inspiration. The portraits and images from the archive took, many figurative as well as the abstract presence. You feel that in them. So while exploring my family archive, one thing I saw first, how it happened. I still remember. They are kept in one particular place. So I went there, and when I took it, just the whole album is in a cardboard box.
Okay.
So So cardboard box, when I opened, so cardboard was kind of falling apart. So because it's a very old album, it's been with me at least for the last 30, 40 years. So when I saw that, so when I opened that cardboard box first, it seemed like a map of a house. Do you know what I'm saying? If you open any box, and this I'm talking about now 2016, 17, when I was dealing with the subject. Before the River Song Museum, which the River Song Solo, which happened in Delhi in 2019. Now, dealing with this subject, I remember seeing them, and then I started, actually looking. I kept the album aside and started dealing with this subject of wrapping boxes. This cardboard boxes, so all kinds. And then what happened? The lockdown happened.
Okay.
So when lockdown happened, I had nothing. I had no material because my studio was about 6-7 kilometers, basically where I work. So the studio was there. So I had nothing here. So I started, only Amazon would deliver. So those packing box became my paper because I had nothing at home, and I had to draw. What else do you do? I read and draw. So I started drawing on them. So if you remember, the work Zarina was also on an Amazon packing box. So I started dealing with this, packing boxes, various kinds, and then the shape of it. When if let's say a egg comes or a banana, anything is getting delivered, so I would always open them. So there are shapes. So they are very. It's like it's like an aerial view of a house map. Now I get to the stage 2 when I open the album. So all the albums, before I get to the photograph, there is a translucent sheet which has a lot of floral designs. I'm sure you all have seen that. Before the album, see, in between the page there are dividers, there are protectors. So this translucent sheet. So that was very, very fascinating. So while I was creating this particular work, and for this show, this is not something from my any existing show or previous work. So this I was when Rajeshri told me, when I met Rajeshri, she came here in the month of March, and this year, and then she was saying, what all? See, I had a body of work which I presented last year when we did the webinar. Now, a lot of work couldn't travel, which was part of this thing because of certainly logistics is a huge thing, and how much the way Paula was talking about vitrines and almiras. I know I had 3 of them. So how do you put the courier charges or logistics became really a challenge. So I was thinking, so let me create a body of work. So these moons, what you saw, the 10 moons, they were part of actually a series called 22 Moons from the show. So 10 moons, and then I created this whole body of work. So each image has a translucent fabric that is an organza, and that has a print, those prints are basically reminder of the houses, the maps, and they are all basically of these packing boxes, different kind of packing boxes. So I started drawing those. If you see, there is a black portrait, and there on top of that there is a drawing of a packing box. So that's where I was coming from for this particular body work.
Fascinating, wonderful. Paula, for me, the unique artworks of yours in this exhibition are the menu cards, in which the sketches of different types of fish recipes and names of the rivers are highlighted. So I could immediately, since I travel to Bangladesh maybe 8 times in a year, I'm a Bangladeshi actually.
You're lucky, really.
Very lucky. Yeah. I never say no to like any invitation from Bangladesh. And as I love that place and everyone over there. So I could immediately connect it that it is something to deal with Chittagong. So please tell us the whole idea of this particular creation and about your Chittagong trips. And that day you were telling me about roaming around the fish market on food, etc. So I think that will be wonderful for the audience to know. And they will understand more like what you try to portray in your artwork.
So that, like Debashish was just saying, that's a very layered work. And, it's kind of built up in layers which are not immediately evident, but they are there. And so they're layered both in process and in thought. And I think that's what, my reading of Debashish's work is as well, that the process is as integral to, the
Exactly.
making is very integral to the whole thing. So I was invited to a residency in Bangladesh, a month-long residency, and I started out at Chittagong. And I was staying outside of Chittagong, actually, on the delta of the Kornofuli River.
Okay.
That was the first, half of my residency. And so it was a completely fascinating time for me. And, because that delta is quite amazing because, the main activity there is the fishing on the delta. And it's basically largely, a community of fisher people. And so the residency was at, this artist Roby's house in the village. He had created a residency space in one part of, their property. And, so I used to stay there, and then I would cross this mahogany grove every day to go to their house and have my meals with the family. And that was completely a revelation to me because in Chittagong, they eat fish from breakfast time.
Yeah, I know.
So even if, they're giving you
and different types.
Yeah, so even if they're giving you a roti torkari, even torkari is laced with fish. So there's fish bones or fish head or something. So I'm not used to it. I love fish, but I'm not used to eating fish for breakfast. So this was a complete revelation for me. So we, and then, every day buying fish for the day was like a major ritual. So I used to jump on and go to the fish market every day, the whole time I was there. So on the one hand, so then, so I would go around, I would see everything. Then afterwards, we went to Cox's Bazaar. And that, is the Shutki stronghold.
Yeah.
The Shutki industry is very big over there. So then I would, I would prowl the Shutki markets and the dried fish and photograph the different kinds of dried fish and all that. So this kind of features, it's like a big memory from my time in Bangladesh during that residency. And of course, as I was saying, coupled with this is my personal love of fish. I love eating fish. And, I'm like a true, Bangali in that respect. And I'm also very interested in, as I said earlier, I'm very interested in food. I love to eat. I love to cook. I'm interested in different kinds of cuisine. I like trying different kinds of food. So I wanted to make this, menu book for a fictitious fish restaurant that kind of hypothetically exists in Kolkata and Dhaka.
It has name of the rivers. I love it. Yeah.
So the restaurant is called Cox's Bazaar, the English East-West Fish Bar, and it has 2 branches in Kolkata and Dhaka. And I'm the master chef. So this is how the work evolved. Now it's a very layered work. It has its first layer is chintz. This is my precious chintz blocks printed on the paper, which is actually the colonial sort of presence, the underlayer, which is essentially the underlayer to partition. And then I have over there layered one on top of the other. I have shutki recipes, so the dried fish recipes. I have, and then I have kind of recipes staggered where I have recipes from East Bengal, recipes from West Bengal, and colonial fish recipes in between.
Yeah.
And so this kind of signifies the rupture, but also plays on the love of fish that we have in all these three cultures, because the English are also very fond of fish. And then of course there are the it has many mediums in it. It has block printing, wood block printing, it has serigraphy, it has etching, it has printing on glass, it has glass etching, it has many different things. So it's very, very layered, built up, and so that's basically what it's about.
I have a question. Tell me,
Yes.
this particular block we're talking about for the chins,
Yeah.
you got them made, or is it a vintage? Is it an old?
No, I got them made. I made my I made my own designs, and then I actually Konishko, the gallery experimenter. So their parent unit of textile, they helped me cut the blocks. So so Pratik and Priyanka Raja's father. Dilip Raja, who was really my great friend. He passed away in the pandemic, and I really miss him. He helped me cut those blocks.
Amazing.
We had many good conversations over the years, and especially that was my first interaction.
You must go to Calico Museum. Have you been to Calico Museum?
Yes.
To see the amazing chins they have.
Yeah.
The best collection of chins.
Yeah, and you were just saying I've even worked in Bagru.
Oh.
Debashish, you actually missed it, and we missed you.
I know, I missed big time.
Actually, my next question to you, but I can see that we have only 2-3 minutes. So now, obviously, no. I'll ask you questions, like both of you questions. I have a few questions, but now I'll be more precise, I believe. So my next question is to Debashish about your work, River Song. So in that particular work, we can see that the ropes have been cut into small threads and put back together. So you have actually, what I realized, that you have a tendency to take apart things and rearranging seem to play a major role in your artworks. So what do you think has inspired this, like for doing this kind of work?
River Song. Okay, I'll keep it short since we have less time.
Yeah.
See, as I discussed with you, and as I was mentioning, that I deal with textiles every day. So when we talk about textiles, it has a very, very academic way of creating a textile. You'll have to have one warp and one weft, and that's how you begin. So when I was thinking about, actually, this was the song. This particular the River Song was the main work of the show, which I did in 2019, and so I was creating a portrait. This was portrait of my mother.
Okay.
And as Ranjit said, this looks like a portrait on a landscape, Bose. So when I was thinking about my mother, and I was thinking about only saris, and when I started working on creating a textile, then there were many things we did, research and this, then and experiments, this and that. So I wanted to certainly the challenge the traditional or the academic way of creating a textile is basically. So this has no continuous thread.
Okay.
So what I did, I went to the market and bought a big thick rope, and they're cotton. So so I kind of first you untwist them, then you cut them, then I layered them, and then there are stitching. It's like a regular, just random stitches. So it's held together, which it looks like a tapestry. But it is actually, if you go close, you see there are only small threads, and there are running stitches over it. So that is how I created this work. So not like really ripping apart and doing it. That was a process which I followed to create, just because I wanted a very different, very unconventional, because my mother was very unconventional. And that was a few things I had in mind while I was creating this. So this was my take or approach for this work.
Acha, river song is itself a very curious. Paula, you wanted
No,
to
please
ask?
carry on. No, please carry on.
It's a so river song. This is actually a very curious title. So can you please share with us the thought behind it? Like why you decided to like term it or named it in that particular way? So
No, I didn't name it. Ranjit did. Ranjit Hoskote, he did. So
Oh.
while basically while we were, because he was writing for my show, so we had a meeting a month before the show, and we were going through the work, and we were thinking what to call the music, the show, and about different works. So this particular work, and it stayed with him as well, and as it was one of the most important work for me. So, and my mother is from Benares. My mom is from Benares. Yeah, she is not from Calcutta. So my father is from Shirampur.
So was it a conscious decision that you went to Benares for your studies? And
no, not really. Not really. That was the cheapest because I wanted to go to, my father said, no, you can't do art college. My father had absolutely said, no, you please do something which will, you do become an engineer or be a doctor or something like that. So I put my foot down, and BHU was being the central university, is one of the cheapest university. I think the entire expense of my studies must have been 3,000-4,000 rupees, because I think we used to pay about 1,000 rupees a year, and it was 4 years, so 4,000 rupees. And I still remember I used to take 600 rupees from my father every month. Believe me, 20 rupees a day. So that is what I spent. So if you do 600 into 12 into 4 years, you know how much I spent in entire, span of 4 years. So anyway, I'm not going that way. So so this name was given by him because it was portrait of my mother, and we were discussing many things. So this name, beautiful name, was given by Ranjit Hoskote.
Oh, so can you please tell us about the use of this red color? That red color is really like you can see it.
Well, as I said, it was portrait of my mother. So when I remember, no, why because when if you're today, I lost her exactly 7 days after the show ended, River Song. So if I, even today, whenever I close my eyes and I think about my ma, I only see her white hairs and red sidur. That is how I saw her. For many years, she had beautiful silver hair, not gray hair. She had a silver hair. And I always saw the sidur in her. Never, but I never saw her without sidur. So that was one thing, and her love was unconditional, like a river, absolutely like ever cascading river, and she was beautiful. So this the color red comes from there. Yeah, is the significance.
Paula, you were asking something to Debashish.
No, I was just going to comment. I mean, the river song work, I find it's making very interesting, because I feel like somewhere, it's like a dismantling and reassembling of memory. And I sort of feel like, we sometimes do that in order to come to terms with memory, with loss, and sort of, we tend to sort of, that you tend to negotiate and reassemble memory in certain ways, in order to live with it. So I feel like I find the process of that work very interesting. The other thing which, I mean, of course, it looks extremely impressive and beautiful. When I saw it at Akar Prakar in Delhi, I was very, very taken with the work. And the other thing, when the river song, I mean, you just explained where the title comes from, but my project on Bangladesh, this from where most of this work is also called Rivers of Blood. And so,
I know it, but I couldn't connect, right?
Yeah, so so I sort of that's why the river song title actually really stuck with me, because I felt somewhere that there was an affinity.
Wonderful.
And
how beautiful.
And I mean, that white and red has also been like a predominant feature in the palette of my Rivers of Blood exhibition, my Rivers of Blood, that body of work as well.
Yeah, I still believe me. If you see my work, if my last 10 years work, I use of color is very minimal. I
Yeah.
primarily, I love to play with white on white, and a little bit of tonal variation. To me, using of color is like an ornament. I don't like too many ornaments on people. It's simplicity is the best. So even that's the reason I even don't sign. Sometimes I feel that if the moment I
I
sign the
was about
work,
to ask you this question. That
this is going to disturb my work, and I don't sign. If you see in this entire this thing, there is not a single sign.
yeah, I have noticed. Yeah. Oh, I was about to ask you this question actually. That why you didn't sign?
I don't, I to me, see, when you go for an exhibition, anyway, whose artwork is this because the names are already there. So you connect that way, and and the kind of work I do installation primarily. It's very difficult to sign them. Even River Song, where do you sign? So in other way, or if you look at the work which I did for the museum within also, those works also, it's very difficult to sign on them because there are white 40 by 40 blocks. The moment you write even anything, it will disturb the entire work. So sometimes sign becomes, and anyway, let the work be signature, not the
I
signature be
actually
work.
thought of asking you this as some of the artists, like they shared with me that the most satisfying moment when they feel that okay, they are done with the work and they sign. So for them, that is like the best moment. So that's why I thought that your work and your way of approaching things are actually different, and it's wonderful. It's very
As
good.
I said, let the work be signature, not signature be the work.
Yeah, yeah, I got it. Paula Di, my last question to each of you, and then I will ask a common question to both of you. So my last question to you, particular question to you is that during our discussion on that day of the inauguration of the exhibition, you were actually mentioning that you are working with flora and fauna right now. And you have provided the visitors with an opportunity to experience a bit about your new form of work. So my question is that why did you think of connecting representing partition through nostalgia and flora and fauna together through this unique piece of artwork? And you were mentioning that that's a very new work, that Choto Almira, Choto Khat, sorry.
That
Very
work
sweet work.
was
Now that is very cute actually.
that work was finished on the morning of the opening.
Oh.
If I may admit now. And it was made actually at Rajasri's very special request. And so this bed has been with me for a while. It's a miniature Bangla cart, which was probably used in all likelihood for to put gods and goddesses to bed or for dolls. So it was given to me by one of my Mashi Shashuris a few years ago, one of my aunts-in-law. And she kind of came and put it in my studio and said that, only you will know what to do with this. And it's been with me ever since. And I had not done anything with it. But Rajasri took one look at this and she said that, oh, can you make a work, using this for the exhibition? So I said, sure, why not? And then I kind of sat it in the middle of my studio and I was, kind of living with it while I was making another body of work. So I'm currently working towards an online solo. And so, so the Rivers of Blood series is like a decade old. And since then, naturally, I've moved on to other things. But you can see that there is a presence of flora and fauna in my work, even at that time. So that is something that has always interested me. And as I said, that making my own chintz is something that I started as far back as with Rivers of Blood. But now I'm, full-fledged into that. And that is really what I'm in the process of doing. And so naturally, because I jumped from there to, making this work for this exhibition, So obviously it found its way in. And so, what I basically made again is a nuptial bed.
Okay.
And so, so what I do a lot is work on found textile. So, and I kind of save, all sorts of things, from table linen to this to that. I save all kinds of things. So I have a whole stash of table linen, which came from my mother-in-law's trousseau, her mother's trousseau.
Wow.
So it's all like old stuff, on embroideries on linen, crochet, that sort of stuff. And
So
cross
must visit for me when I come to Calcutta.
yeah, cross stitch and all that, which my mother-in-law, when I was clearing cupboards, she said, just throw them away. And I kept them, I kept that stash. It's still there in the loft in my studio. I keep it up there. And so I pulled all this out, and, so I have all these. So this is basically made from a tray cloth and tea cozy, an old one, which, and, the colonizers were very interested in the flora and fauna of the exotic East, right? And they had all this documentation of the flora. So one of the things so I've, in this new set of work which I've been doing, I've been kind of tracing that whole process and starting with botanical drawings from my garden, making nature studies, and then, going step by step to evolve my own chintz motifs and develop my own textile. Okay. So that's how this work happened. So basically what I did is, with the embroideries that were already there, I layered my own appliques and embroideries, and I put together two flowers, which are, basically reproductive, representing the male and female reproductive, organs, process, whatever you may call it, presence. And that's how the work came about. It's a nuptial bed, essentially.
And you didn't draw, you just use your...
I never draw. When I embroider, I never draw. I just do it straight away. I never draw.
I saw it, it's amazing. I saw the details. No, so you are amazing, actually. Debashish, my last question to you, that it seems like your artworks are ever changing. And it was observed that the KCC team had quite a high degree of liberty while they were actually installing your artworks. So in the case of the river song too, the ash bricks were replaced with the usual bricks. So what brings about this flexibility? For me, it's a very, very interesting.
No, it's not really, because when Rajashri was, we discovered that she's unwell, and so my link with this entire thing, because Rajashri became unwell just a month before the show, in a month and a half actually, and I had I came to know from Amrita actually that she's not well. I just didn't know that what has happened to her, because I sent her messages that it was not getting any revert from her. So then the display was a big challenge, and then KCC's team took over, and so I sent them a detailed drawing of exactly how I want. Now the ash brick, when I see every work, especially in installation, I feel if it is free flowing, or it has so it would certainly, let's say if it goes to Bombay, so a venue will play a huge role, because it is not only about a work, it's about where it is. So, and how you're putting it, it's very important. So display is a very, very integral part of a particular work of this kind. So when I got to know that this place has a very high ceiling, because in Akar Prakar, as Paula has seen, Akar Prakar has about 10 feet high ceiling, and this place had at least about, a very, very high ceiling. So the fall I was getting, number one. So, and ash brick was working fine in a very modern setup, because that had a very different connotation. Here we are talking about partition. So brick was a conscious decision. So I ordered, Moushumi gave me contact details of somebody, and then I ordered the bricks with him directly, and it was delivered to him. So bricks was a conscious decision, replacing from ash, because ash brick would not work in a subject called partition. I thought so. But in my drawing initially, when I had created a 30-inch, high wall, and the thing was falling on it. but it became a bit of a challenge for to create a wall, because what if it's wobbly and if it falls, and there are all kinds of people. So me and Gaurav, we were on a video call and we took the call that, let's make it flat and more. But then I was kind of going by my instinct how it would look, and finally when I saw the display, it's got a height, so it is not really. I think problem. I called Gaurav next time, and I spoke to Paula also, that the stretching, it's falling it from one side, the right side. It is kind of not really stretched properly. But I guess it's just because of its height, and since it's not a proper textile, so it is also the construction of this material is also playing, has a huge role. So no, I don't think flexible means jaiche kore na, vajakhuji kore na. Yeah, but I do take a call that how, if let's say if this work goes to tomorrow to Victoria Albert, so certainly that place will have a huge role to play, and we will certainly negotiate in that case. Yeah.
Yeah, got your point. Thank you. Acha, and my last question to both of you. So please respond. Maybe Paula can respond fast, and then Debashish does. So as you were aware that there was an interactive space in that site of the exhibition where maps without the border between Bengal and Bangladesh were arranged. So people were asked how they would like to draw the border if they had to do it in the present day scenario. So my question to both of you, that the whole idea of KCC was that they were expected to express their sentiments with a line. So several people actually participated, which is very interesting. So what are your views on this unique idea implemented by KCC? Paula?
So, when we started installing the exhibition, the first thing I saw when I came into the gallery was this work.
Yeah.
And so I asked Siddharth that, what is this? So Siddharth said that this is something that, we've designed at KCC to be part of this exhibition. It's an interactive work. And I thought it was really exciting, because I'm sure there's one set of people who came into the exhibition who have no associations with partition. They just came to see the show. They came because, there are a lot of walk-ins in that building. There are multiple exhibitions going on. They come. I know lots of young people came, lots of students, lots of young people came, and they really don't have an association with partition. But I found they were the most excited to participate, at least at the opening and the couple of days that I was in the gallery, they were the most excited to participate. And then, of course, there were people who, have actually who belong to a generation that has actually experienced partition or experienced the impact of partition. So I think it was a great initiative, and I would actually really be interested to see. I'm sure KCC will compile the whatever has come,
comments,
the responses of viewers who came in and participated. I'm sure they'll compile it. I would actually be really interested to see, because I'm sure a lot of interesting revelations will come out of that.
Yeah.
And now, more and more, this whole issue of borders, why these borders were drawn, etc., how fluid or flexible they should be and shouldn't be, all of this is really up for discussion a lot. So, it would be nice to see what the responses actually are.
Thank you. Debashish?
No, as Paula said, it's a great concept. And I was talking to Gaurav on this, Siddharth on this, and it's a great concept. But as Paula said, that what people are thinking, what is in their mind, it'd be amazing to see, because it's very difficult to put yourself in Radcliffe's shoes. Think about it. Basically, you've been given a pen, and if you're drawing, so now people would either draw or not draw, or create a circle out of it, or draw something, erase it. I don't know. So I don't know what people are thinking. So it would be lovely if 15, 20 people have actually put their thoughts together and given them to, look at them. I think that'll be amazing to display. Maybe last day they could display it, at what people thought, or maybe if they could digitize it and show it to us.
Okay, thank you so much. We have 3 questions from the audience, and we have only 18 minutes, 17 minutes, I believe. So let me ask you questions, some quick questions. So my first question is actually Somdatta Bosu Roy Choudhury. She has asked a question to Debashish, and she wrote that I would like to ask Debashish that one thing I feel his works are some kind of splitting times, the fragile space, narrativeness. Is it natural to recall the old memories?
Well, I feel memories are the only vehicle to get back to past. I don't have any other, source. So if I think about, since we were dealing with one particular subject of partition, and this was a conscious decision, and I primarily, memories are, I've been dealing with this subject, and it's been one of the main key element and in my preoccupation. So when I talk about, once again, partition, I'm saying categorically that I do not look at partition as a partition of India and Pakistan and Bangladesh and so on and so forth. So I'm discussing, I'm dealing with the things around partition, what happens, displacement. And when I talk about displacement, I'm not talking about refugees. I'm talking about displacement at a very large context. And I'm saying about how I feel about it. Even believe me, even when I was doing Nancy did a very beautiful curatorial talk. She had conducted for Kochi Binal, where I was asked to talk about sonic memories. So when I'm talking about sonic memories, how, in my childhood, or, how we are losing those sounds. A curd seller would come every day morning. There were ritual, a curd seller will come and call for, curd in a certain way. And I was growing up in Bihar. So it's very strange. Then, we lived in railway colony. The loco shade was next to it. So the kind of sound I would hear. So when I talk about displacement, I talk about displacement at a very, very different context. So other than memories or old memories, I had no other medium to connect these two.
Okay. Paula ji, Nikita Shah asked a question that why and how should culture, land affect art of an artist? That is her question.
Well, I think you can see in my work how culture and land affect an artist. So, artists don't live oblivious to their surroundings, their history, their upbringing, their environment, their inheritance. All of this plays a role in, the evolution and development of their artwork. So I don't think one can really separate any of this. I think in the course of this conversation, I talked about, my the culture that I was raised in, the culture that I married into,
Exactly.
and and clearly all of this has impacted my work. Land itself is, once again, I've addressed that exhaustively in my work, because land, shifting geographies, the idea of the loss of home, of displacement, enforced migration. These things have featured very prominently in my work over various bodies of work, from rivers of blood to its sequel, Love Pony, which was about the birth of Bangladesh in 1971. And how that, of course, triggered another whole series of displacement for various other reasons, and the fact that that partition, that the birth of Bangladesh, these are all legacies and burdens that we continue to bear even today in Bengal, in the eastern part of the country. I've also worked exhaustively on Tibet. That has been, my other sort of overriding preoccupation and is a work in progress. I've worked for many years on Tibet, and, I have a huge ongoing project on Tibet, which is called Into Exile. And the reason that I empathize with, I travel quite exhaustively in the Himalayas and the Trans-Himalaya. And I, because I come from a displaced family myself, I empathize deeply with the Tibetan people and the loss of their homeland, and the fact that that Tibet itself is an impossible dream, but nevertheless, the idea of Rangzen, or freedom, remains like a fire in their hearts. So all of this actually, so land, the sense of belonging to land, to roots, and the challenge of conserving displaced cultures, of keeping them alive, and the question of whether these are living cultures, whether how they should be kept alive, or whether they should be museumized. These are sort of questions that I've raised time and again in my work, and these are issues that are very close to my heart, which I feel very strongly about.
Thank you. Debashish, my last question to you. Tathagato Sen has asked this question. It's very interesting. The river song somehow reminds us of the river of blood in which Macbeth found himself waddling in. Apart from the vermilion, is not it a river of blood?
Well, there is a very important thing in art called shift, a paradigm shift. I think it plays a huge role. And I really like when an audience starts conversing with the work. When you start having a dialogue, and when you start interacting with work, it's very interesting for an artist, for the person who has created it. As I keep saying, this question, somebody else also asked me in Delhi when I was with the JNU kids, that, I really like the way one person has several different identities. And it's like, on you, like somebody's daughter, somebody's wife, somebody's friend. So you have different, but you remain single. So you have different identities. So I really, I'm fine with Tathagato's, observation and the way he looks at it. But yeah, I shared with him, with the audience, that what was the actual thought behind while creating this work. But one work certainly can have many, perspectives, and that is free for discussion. Yeah.
Can I just comment on that, please?
Yeah.
So, when I first saw that work of yours in Akar Prakar, the first thought that crossed my mind is that this, that here is the river of blood. And because I had actually named my exhibition that, but my body of work was metaphorically the river of blood. But when I saw your work, I just thought that, I said, here is the river of blood. And, so that was like the first thought in my mind when I saw it.
And many people ask me this question, and people, they easily relate red and blood.
Yeah.
I have got another question. Another quick question to Paula. So Debashish Ghorui actually asked this question. He wrote that my question is to Paula ma'am. What kind museum would you imagine propose to preserve these cultural traits?
I honestly don't know. You know, I'm not a museum person, but I don't know. I mean, I collaborate with museums, but I'm not a maker of museums. So that requires a different kind of expertise. But you know, the main partner in this exhibition is the Partition Museum. So to be very honest, if the Partition Museum, you know, one day, I mean, I hope that we will see it in the flesh.
Physical space, yeah.
Yes, and you know, so I really look forward to that coming about. That you know, something that will you know, encapsulate for later generations not just the history, but also the legacy, the burden, the pain, the anguish, and the aftermath of partition. So yes, so you know, so I think I hope that happens. I think it's very important, and of partition on you know, this side of the country. We know that there is now a partition museum in Amritsar, which documents the partition of Punjab and the western side of the country. But here, the history is very different, and it's the whole point is that it's not just history; it is history, you know, transgressing the present. It is an ongoing process. So, so this museum is actually essential, and I hope it will see the light of day. I really hope that it will.
Amen.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, we are all happy to share our expertise, our inputs, whatever we can do, but I would be happy to have it see the light of day.
Thank you so much, Paula and Debashish, for this wonderful session. It is actually such an enriching experience for all of us. So we are actually grateful. And my idea for both this session was to talk to the artists and about their artworks, but I tried to focus more on the artist and try to show the audience that how, like, what were the background of these artworks that we were lucky enough to like see it in that particular exhibition. So thank you so much. And personally, I want to thank like everyone from KCC, Dr. Rina Devan, Siddharth, with whom I actually worked, Moushumi, Averi, and everyone. And from Partition Museum, of course, Dr. Rajashree Mukhopadhyay and Dr. Rituparna Rai. So over to you, Averi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. And what an enriching session we had this evening. So we have reached the end of this session now. This session actually marks the end of our exhibition, The Legacy of Loss, Perspectives on the Partition of Bengal, which had begun on the 17th of this month. Also, Goutam Ghosh, who couldn't join this evening, unfortunately. He tried several times, but he simply could not connect. Sir, your insights were sorely missed. I would like to thank our speakers this evening for participating in this discussion. And Anindita ma'am, thank you for being the moderator once again. And I would also like to thank our audience, of course, because without all of you and all of your very insightful questions, this discussion would have been incomplete. We are elated to have you with us. And we actually look forward to many such engaging sessions in the future. Finally, I would request everyone to follow our page on Facebook and Instagram and our website, www.kolkatacenterforcreativity.org, to receive more updates on upcoming events. We have also recently launched KCC's very own web series, Articulate. You can have a look at the articles, videos, and a lot more at articulate.org.in. Thank you once again for being with us this evening, and stay safe. And good night to all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Babiri.